I hope that all of you are doing well. So, up till now, we have taken a look in chapter 7 at the different types of cost, starting with fixed cost, then variable cost, marginal cost, and average cost. Afterwards, we have observed the relation between marginal cost and average cost, and it determines the cost minimization point for the producer. Then the production decisions, that according to the time period the firm or a producer make a production decision, it can either be a short run or it can be a long run. And afterwards, diminishing returns and U-shaped cost curve, that if in short run, if the producer keep on changing the variable factor while keeping the fixed factor constant, it will take the firm towards diminishing returns and resulting in higher marginal cost and average cost, giving us a U-shaped cost curve. Then comes the last topic of this chapter, which is the link between production and cost. Cost of production, it depends upon the input prices. The higher the input price, the higher will be the cost of production. If any of the input become expensive, which could be the labor, that is the market wages increases, or raw material price increase, or it could be that rent on land increases or the interest rate on loanable funds increases, cost of production will definitely increase. But other than input price, another factor or variable which can influence the cost of production is technological change. Technological change, we have studied this variable many times in previous lectures as well, that it shows the effect of improvement in method of production or efficiency attained by the firm by reducing its wastage rate. So whenever there is an improvement in method of production or there is a technological change, it decreases the cost of production for the firm as the firm is improving its methods of production. Now, to show the effect of technological change, we include a new concept, and that's the production function. Production function, it indicates the it is used to indicate the effect of technology. And if you want to define it, it shows the relation between input and output, that is how many inputs are required to produce a given level of output. Now, to show it with the help of a diagram, we are going to take the inputs on the horizontal axis and output on the vertical axis, which shows that as the input increases, output is likely to be increased as well. That is, the higher the input, the higher will be the output. This diagram, over here we are taking the inputs on the horizontal axis and output on the vertical axis. It starts from the origin and gradually it is moving upward. It shows that as the labor or any other input increase, production or output is going to be increased as well. To include the effect of technology, whenever there is a change in technology or improvement in the method of production, there is going to be an upward shift in production function. Over here, we are taking inputs on the horizontal axis, output on the vertical axis. Now this 95 technology is our initial production function. It shows that when the firm is using, let's say, 3000 of input, with that input, or sorry, when it is using two inputs, with that the firm is producing, let's suppose, 3000 of units of output. In the same manner, when the three inputs are used, with that it is able to produce 4000 units of output. Now, to include the effect of technology, there is an upward shift in production function from 1995, it is moved to 2005, which means that more can be produced with the same level of input. Now, if we are considering two inputs, previously it is able to produce 3000 units of output. Now, with the change or improvement in method of production, with the same 2 units of input, it is able to produce, let's suppose, 5,000 units of output. In the same manner, when the input is 3, previously it is producing, let's say, 3,000 units or 4,000 units of output. Now it is able to produce 6,000 units of output. So it means that when there is a change in technology, more output can be produced with the same level of input, which means that per unit cost is definitely going to be decreased for the firm. Now, to show the effect of this reduction in per unit cost, I'm drawing an average cost curve, taking output on horizontal axis, cost on vertical axis. AC is our initial average cost curve, which is a U-shaped cost curve. Now, because there is improvement in method, output increases, which means that per unit cost is going to be decreased, and that effect we are showing with the downward shift in average cost curve. So AC is the initial cost. As the improvement in method of production occurs, upward shift in production function, and per unit cost is going to be reduced, shown by a downward shift in average cost curve. Now, to show this effect of technology, or how by using the input prices production or cost minimization can be determined, we are observing a case of a farmer which has two inputs, land and labor. Land is a fixed factor which is given, that is 10 acres of land a farmer has, and the price of land is rent, which is given as well, which is $5.5 per acre. However, labor is the variable factor. Farmer has to decide that with this given land, how many workers it requires. But the market wages are $5 per hour. Now, I have mentioned this information in the form of a table, taking different levels of output starting from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Land, which is 10 acre, is mentioned over here. At each level of output, it is 10 acres. Labor, it is the farmer has to decide. So when the output is 0, labor is going to be 0. To produce first unit, it hires 6 workers. To produce second unit, it requires 11 workers. Then at the third level of output, it hires 15 workers. Afterwards, it is 21, 31, and to produce 6 units of output, it requires 45 workers. Rent, it is mentioned as it is given. Wages are mentioned as they are given as well. Rent is $5.5 at each output given, and wages are $5 as well, which are paid on hourly basis. Now, using this information, we are going to determine the cost minimization point, which is marginal cost is equals to average cost. Now, the same data which I have used before, I have mentioned before, I have mentioned it again. Land, labor, rent, and wages are given. Now, from this given information, first we have to calculate for fixed cost, afterwards the variable cost, then the total cost, and then average cost and marginal cost. Now, how to measure the fixed cost? Since land is the fixed factor, when we multiply land with its price, which is rent, it will give us the fixed cost. In the same manner, labor is the variable factor. When we multiply labor with wages, it will give us the variable cost. When we add together fixed and variable cost, it will give us the total cost. Now, land multiplied by rent, 10 into 5.5 is going to be 55, which is the fixed cost, and it is going to be same at each level of output. 55 when the output is 0, for the first unit produced it is 55, second it again 55, and so on. Variable cost, when the output is 0, variable cost is 0 as well, because the firm is not hiring any worker. Now, to produce first unit, it hires 6 workers. So when we multiply 6 with 5, 6 5s are 30, variable cost to produce first unit. 11 into 5 is 55, 15 into 5 is 75, 21 into 5 is 55, 31 into 5 is 155, and to produce 6 units, 45 into 5 is 225. Now, fixed cost and variable cost, when we add them together, it gives us the total cost. When the output is 0, total cost is still there, which is 55, and that indicates the fixed cost of production. To produce first unit, 55 plus 30 is going to be 85. Afterwards, 55 plus 55 is 110, then it's 130, 160, 210, and 280. Average cost. When we divide the total cost with the output, it gives us the per unit cost. So the per unit cost of the first unit of output is 85. Afterwards, 110 divided by 2 is 55, 130 divided by 3 is 43, 160 divided by 4 is 40, and so on. Now, it is the same data which we are keep on using from the beginning of this chapter. Previously, we are observing it from the fixed cost and variable cost. Now, over here, we have observed that how this fixed and variable cost can be calculated, and which is when we multiply the price of fixed factor with its amount, that is land with the rent, and to calculate the variable cost, labor is multiplied with the wages. Now, then comes the marginal cost. Marginal cost is the difference between second and first value of total cost. So, to produce first unit, the marginal cost is 30, 85 minus 55. 110 minus 85 is 25, 130 minus 110 is 20, 160 minus 130 is 30, 210 minus 160 is 50, 280 minus 110 is 70. Now, to determine the cost minimization point, again, at a glance at this table, we cannot find any point where the marginal cost is equals to average cost. So, what we are going to do is that we are going to observe that till what level marginal cost is less than average cost. When for the first unit of output, marginal cost is less than average cost, marginal cost is 30, average cost is 85. Same is at the second level of output when the marginal cost is 25, average cost is 55. So the producer further increases the output, which is continued at the third level of output as well as at the fourth level of output where the marginal cost is less than average cost. But when it comes to the fifth level of output, now the marginal cost is 50, which is greater than average cost, that is 42. So the producer is going to produce 4 levels of output as long as the marginal cost is less than average cost, as it is profitable for the producer to do the production till that point. So this is our cost minimization point for the firm. Now, the question is that if any of the input price increases, for example, if the fixed cost is doubled, and that is rent is increased to $11, previously it is $5.5. So if the rent is doubled, what will be the effect on rent? And then how this change in rent is going to change the fixed cost and all other related cost. In the same manner, if the wages are doubled, that previously the wages are $5 mentioned over here. Now let's say that it is increased to $10. Then what will be the effect on the variable cost and all other related cost? So these are the two questions which you people have to answer, and these are two independent questions. First, you are going to observe the effect of change in rent, and secondly, you are going to observe the effect of change in wages. Okay, you do the exercise, calculate it, and then we will discuss it when we are observing our or conducting our live session. In the same manner, there is one more question, is that if the market wages are increased, then what will be the effect on fixed cost, average fixed cost, variable cost, average variable cost, marginal cost, and average cost? And second is that if the rent on land is reduced, then how all these costs are going to be affected. So again, you have to answer this question and we will discuss it in our live session. So over here, our chapter number 7 is completed. So thank you, and we will discuss the rest of it in our live session.